Hey everybody, Brett Rice, Core Vision Financial Group, coming to you today with another episode in our series on financial topics. Today we're joined by Brent Thoman, partner here at Core Vision. We're going to discuss financial freedom, as July is the official month of financial freedom. So Brent, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
We just finished talking about our weekend, so we're ready to get started on this. But again, go to our YouTube page and subscribe so you're notified when we post a new video. We post a new video about once a month. So just subscribe to that so you're notified when we post a new one. Brent, give yourself a quick introduction.
All right. My name is Brent Thoman. Been with Core Vision Financial Group now. This is our 10th year. I've been in the business. This is my 26th year that I'm starting and just enjoyed it. I actually went into the business with my father when I graduated college and have just enjoyed it ever since. And couldn't ask for anything better.
26 years, that's a long time.
It has. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but man, time flies.
Yeah, and so, over 26 years, you've probably talked to lots of people about financial freedom.
Yeah, that is a topic actually that's brought up pretty much every time we meet with somebody. Obviously, Brett, you and I are in a lot of meetings together, and the question that we get a lot, right, is am I as good as somebody my age, or how much am I going to need to retire? Right. That's usually the question. And that's why financial freedom topic today is actually what I would say is something people need to understand more than the questions they ask us about, do I have enough, or am I in a better position than most people my age?
And we talk about this frequently, that everyone's situation is different, and financial freedom is going to mean something different to each person.
Yes.
Right? Some people, it's paying off their house. Some people, it's having enough money saved in retirement to cover everything and feel comfortable about it. And, it just means something different to everybody, whether it's, have a large enough savings that you have an emergency savings in place. So if anything happens, not living with debt, it means a whole bunch of different things. So we're going to cover a lot of those topics today, where we talk about, different ideas for becoming having financial freedom. I just think that that's one thing that, you talked about, do I have as much as other people my age? And based upon lifestyle, everybody doesn't need the same amount.
Well, and that's what we always say is depending on how you're living is going to depend on if you have enough money, right? I mean, one 45-year-old and another 45-year-old live completely different lives. And the other thing about financial freedom is what do you actually mean then, right? Does that mean I want to live out of the country on $50,000 a year? Do I want to live in a big city and have to make $200,000 a year when I'm retired? I mean, those are two different lifestyles at that point in time. And saving or doing what you have to do to get there is two different ways. So when financial freedom is completely different to every person, it is so unique to each person. That's why I think some people get caught up of looking at other people. Like, what are they doing? Well, that's not what you want to do maybe. So I think the first part of financial freedom is figuring out what your picture looks like in that retirement or when you want financial freedom.
We sit in these meetings all the time and talk to people, and they're like, how much money should I have in my checking account? And, how much of this should I have? And, a lot of times, you respond with, what allows you to sleep at night?
Yeah, exactly. You said it perfect. What allows you to sleep at night? What makes you comfortable, right? That's the biggest thing. So yeah, like I said, we're going to probably go off on a couple of different tangents here, which always happens, but that's okay. But yeah, financial freedom is different to each person, but the beginning stage of finding out what financial freedom is, defining it for yourself, not other people and what other people do. It's what you want to do. So really start off with, what does it mean to me and what's it look like to me when I get there?
When we start meeting with people and stuff, one of the first things, we're like looking towards that financial plan and saying, what are those goals? How much do you need in retirement? What are your goals in retirement? Travel, active lifestyle, all these things that calculate into that. Because when you're trying to figure that out, I can say my goal is $1 million, but if I want to travel 5 times a year and do all, have a second home, and $1 million probably isn't going to be enough for that. No. So it's, you have to spend some time with your family and figure out what is your retirement picture look like.
Yeah.
Then from that, we can help build, hey, this is the goal. This is the dollar amount we think you're going to need to get through all of that. Let's start there. Where do we start when we're talking about financial freedom? Like, a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people never get there. A lot of people, get pretty upset that they never get there. But let's just talk about how we get there.
So again, I think the very first and most important thing is for your situation, each person, what does financial freedom mean to me, or what's it look like? Does that mean no bad debt? Does that mean living outside the United States? Does it mean living inside the United States with just a small home, maybe travel once in a while, just not having any debt? So right there, that's not easy to do, but you have to define it for yourself. And what I would say is, don't look at the next person and try to take what their picture looks like, because that may not be your picture, right? I mean, financial freedom might be multiple sources of income, whether that's Social Security, whether that's retirement, whether that's real estate income, whatever that is trying to, one, get multiple revenues, dividends, right? Capital gains, whatever you want to call it, from your investments, things like that, having an emergency retirement fund. And the other part of that is to make choices based on your desires, not desperation, right? So it starts off, what's my picture look like personally? My thing is, everybody always wants to see what everybody else has and keeping up with the Joneses, whatever you want to call it, right? I mean, that's what, unfortunately, I think a lot of us do, is what's the next person have? Well, I want that too. Well, that may not be exactly what you want. So define what it means to you when you're at the end of working, or it may be, hey, I want to do a different job that may not pay the same thing here. I want to be able to do this. What is that first? Before you can even know your financial freedom, you have to define what it means to yourself. So I would say right off the bat is understanding that before we talk about how do we get there. What do you want before how do we get there, right? Don't put the cart before the horse.
Right. And you talk about, not having the bad debt in retirement and taking a different job and stuff. All of those are like goals and objectives that you can help plan for if you get started early enough.
Yeah.
Occasionally we have somebody come in close to retirement. They want to do some of this stuff, and we're like, this plan doesn't quite make that work. Maybe you got to work 2 more years, but I think I'm going to harp on this. As much as you've harped on, it's not as much as, you can't be the same as everybody else. Your neighbor's plan's not going to be the same as yours. It's just, almost writing that plan down and understanding what your goals are. Because without that, it's just, Andrea and I, a long time ago, there's a quote that says, a dream without a plan is a wish.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah. It's just without a plan. You have to have a plan, a written down plan that you look at and say, these are my goals. This is what's important to me. Going to get that new car. Well, does that allow me to do these things?
Yeah.
Buying a second home, does it allow me to do what I say are my goals?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're exactly right. Not having a plan usually is just hoping something happens, right?
Right.
I tell my kids is, you're not going to get anywhere if you hope. That's just, hoping's nice, but that doesn't get you anywhere. Brett, some of the things we might talk about is what's going to keep us from that financial freedom after we've kind of figured out what we want, right? Once we've figured out what's financial freedom to ourselves, what's going to cause us not to get there?
Yep.
Some of the things you talk about, like, it seems like the more money we make, the more debt we create, right? Like, we're making more money, let's go buy more things, right? It just seems like as your income grows, so do your expenses. That's probably part of all of our problems. Let's not point at fingers, let's point at each other, right? But that's a lot of times the more you make, the more you spend.
Lifestyle creep.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
Next thing you know, you've got more subscriptions than you can watch in a month. You just start slowly, that stuff starts adding up, and then one day you look at it and you're like, I'm spending hundreds if not thousands of dollars on stuff that I probably don't need.
Yeah.
But everybody's got it, so I felt like I needed to have it because everybody else has it.
Yep, you're exactly right.
And lifestyle inflation, the cost of everything is just continues to go up.
You're right.
And it's more than likely not coming down anytime soon.
No, that's why they call it inflation, right? It goes up. It may go up quicker some years than others, but at the end of the day, it's not coming back down to where it was 20 years ago. That's just, unfortunately, that's the world we live in. So,
right.
Also, other things is high interest debt, right? We like to use our credit cards at 12 and 20 and all that kind of stuff.
30. I saw one the other day. It was 30.66%.
Yeah.
I was
crazy.
like, wow.
That's just crazy. Those are things that don't get us to where we want to be. You might see a 0% interest, but if you don't pay it off in the amount of time, all of a sudden you got a 25% interest. So that's another reason that you don't get to where you want financial freedom. So obviously be very careful of that kind of stuff. One thing, and we've talked about this, and you actually go to the school and do this, lack of financial education.
Yep.
That is, the schools have not done, in my opinion, a great job teaching financial education, whether that's budgeting, compounding interest, whatever that is. And I know they have to teach a lot of other things, but that's one thing I think on a daily life everyone should know, right? I mean, that's something that should be taught, how compounding interest works, how starting saving early will be much better than waiting later and trying to save more. But a budget, like what do you bring in versus what goes out and how much should you be saving? So that's another one. Just lack of financial education. That's another reason we don't get those financial freedoms. And the last thing was short-term thinking. And I'm a bad person at that too, is I want this now. I can't look 25 years down the road, because what if we talk to clients, and what if I'm not alive then?
Right.
I mean, that's just that's a tough one to answer. I kind of, sometimes when I have clients that are real good friends, kind of tongue in cheek, if you pass away, what's it matter if you spend it on that car or not? I mean, but short-term thinking, right? I want it now versus your goal should be, if your goal is you find out what your financial freedom is, you're going to have to hold off on that, right? I mean, that's the hard thing, is we're creatures of wanting it now. Instant gratification. Look at everything we have now. Social media, you can find out. News is nonstop. It's every second of the day. Not the same as 40 years ago. So that has created more of a short-term thinking of let's do it now, rather than sacrifice and wait for a longer period of time.
And you talked about the education part, and we talk about the schools, not teaching some of that, but also, it's the consumer's responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, you should understand a mortgage. When you go take a 30-year mortgage, you should understand how that thing works.
Yeah.
Before you go set in the closing meeting and start signing that stuff. Because, I mean, I went last year and talked to the school, and we start talking about a mortgage. When kids see how much you end up paying for, say, a $200,000 house, I mean, they were just blown away by the total cost of that house. So understanding that prior, and understanding how the interest works, where your crossover point is on that, and all of those things. Yeah. What's the impact of paying a little bit of extra every month, and doing all of those things. So yeah, education, I think, is a huge piece of it. Obviously with the internet now, it's a lot more available.
Yes.
But it requires you to take some time, read through ask some questions to some experts. Most people that I've met that do any type of financial services, mortgage, lending, all of that stuff, are more than willing to answer questions. So just educate yourself.
Yeah. No, I would agree. The education part would be the greatest foundation for young kids of it. I mean, which I think would help them set their financial freedom on the right path if they start early. Again, we're talking about, like, if you haven't done it, we act like you can't do it, but that's not true.
Right.
But again, I those are just some of the things that kind of will hold you back from that. And those 4 or 5 things we just talked about can hold you back if you don't change your ways. How about that?
So we've got a list here of 7 steps to achieve financial freedom. Let's talk through those. We've kind of already touched on number 1, define what financial freedom means to you. We think that's a huge piece of that. That's step 1.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that step 1, right, is don't chase other people's dreams, chase your own, right? Do you want to retire early? Do you want to live abroad? Do you want to build a business? You got to clarify what it means to you. Don't be so broad that it's, I just want to retire early and have no other, but have some definitive answers for yourself. Because if you don't, like you said, if there's no plan, there's no possible way you're going to make it.
Yeah, you have to have a plan.
Yeah.
And then track your spending and net worth, right? One of the things I talk to a lot of people about, including the kids at school, is a budget.
Yep.
That's the first way to figure out, okay, how am I going to achieve these goals? You have your plan.
Yep.
Now what's step 1? Well, let's see where all our money's going.
Yeah. One thing that the budget part we've talked about all the time, and you hear different ideas. I'm a big fan of pay yourself first, right? We've talked about this. We actually talked about that with our new intern this year, is pay yourself first, meaning make sure you're putting away in those retirement or your checking and savings account before you start buying the car and buying this and buying that. Make sure you're paying yourself first, because the other way, you spend all those dollars and, okay, what do I got left that I can put away? Well, what if you have nothing left? All of a sudden, you're not saving for yourself. So I'm a big fan of what you do. You do it on a spreadsheet on Excel, pretty simple. It takes the beginning, obviously takes a little bit to get started, but once you're going, from then on out, it's all right. But understanding, like you said, what's coming in and what's going out. That's the biggest thing, is track your spending. Start that way to know what your financial freedom is going to be. If you can track your spending, you can say, I don't need that. I don't need that. Wait a minute, I got another $700 a month now? Let's figure out how to take care of that.
For sure.
Right?
You know, that's the first thing when people do that. They're like, I didn't even know, you know, I was spending X amount of dollars, you know, say going out to eat every month.
Oh, yeah.
You just see the $15, the $40, the $75 here and there. But over the course of a month, you're like, we spent $700 going out to eat.
Yeah.
And that's getting more expensive.
Very, yes. It's good. Yeah, I know. Another one, next one, eliminate bad debt, right? We just talked about that. Credit cards, high interest. Get those off the table right now. Now, remember, not all debt is bad debt. We got to be very careful with that kind of stuff. That's changed over the years a little bit on some of that, right? We used to get mortgage exemptions to use on your taxes. Now that the standard deduction is much higher, that doesn't equate to as much, but I would say a low interest mortgage is not a bad debt. The high interest credit card, high interest anything else, bad debt. Get that eliminated first and get rid of that and keep that off your books from then on once you get it eliminated, right?
You know, you should have credit cards, but it's more that they're there in case of an emergency. Yeah. You know, a lot of people use them to gather points and pay for travel. You know, as long as your budget is set up, hey, I'm going to put stuff on it and I'm going to pay it off at the end of every month.
Yep.
You know, you can establish a system to where credit cards can work in your
as long as you're disciplined, right? Yeah. I mean, stay disciplined with it.
Build a freedom fund. You know, we've talked about this a bunch of times. Emergency funds.
Yeah.
People ask a lot of times, how much should I have? You know, and, you know, some of that depends on, you know, what your expenses are, what your income is, you know, what your, you know, potential emergencies. You start looking at that stuff, you know. We've sat down and talked to people that they thought they needed $100,000 in their checking account. And so you're just like, well, okay, let's talk through why you think you need that. Yeah. And some people, that's how I sleep at night, is I know that's there. And it's like, yeah, but what's going to happen that's going to cost you $100,000
the next day?
Yeah, the next day that you're going to need it immediately. Yeah. That list is pretty small.
It is, you know, and we talk about that in the next one on the list here of the tops is invest for the long term. So you talk about someone who says, well, I feel comfortable with $100,000 in my savings. Well, if you're getting 0.2%, you're missing out on a lot. So you're not really investing for the long term. If that's one way to get to financial freedom is, and we're not saying keep 3,000 in there. We're saying a happy medium, right?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't have to be all 100, doesn't have to be 3, but you're missing out on a long-term amount of money that you might be able to make. So yeah, again, we get that question all the time. How much should I have in my savings? I mean, the old adage was 3 to 6 months of your salary. And I mean, to each, again, every person's different. What do you feel comfortable with? Some people want to invest more than they want to keep in their savings and checking. So I would just say is find a happy medium that makes you, not what somebody else is doing, right? What you're doing. What we've talked about is don't look at everybody else's picture, look at your own.
You're right. And for somebody getting started, you know, that number may be $5,000 and they're like, oh my gosh, I have $5,000 in there. That's incredible. Yeah. As opposed to somebody who's a little farther along in that journey, that number may be 30 or 40,000. And so I think, you know, people a lot of times on this journey get frustrated. Oh, you know, I don't have enough in there. And it's like, well, it's not just going to appear in there. Yeah. It's going to take time and discipline, and it's, you know, it's going to mean a little more to you if, you know, it's tough to get to that point.
Well, we talked about, right? Short-term thinking versus long-term, right? We want everything right now. We can't always have that. But what we were talking about, invest for the long-term, right? I mean, we're talking about Roth IRAs, 401ks, real estate, things like that. Those are long-term investments, right? That's why you, again, sacrificing for the short-term for the satisfaction of the long-term.
Yep.
So that's another one there.
Well, and we haven't talked about compound interest. I mean, just what an amazing thing that is, and investing for the long term helps you take more advantage of that.
Yep, you're exactly right.
Number 6 on this list, create multiple income streams.
We talked about that already. Start your own business, right? Be a freelance, dividends.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to start
rent if you own a second home or something like that you're getting.
Short-term rentals.
Short-term rentals, yeah. Yes, those are another way to create multiple income streams and to create some more financial freedom.
We just talked about dividends and, you know, some detail last week. You and I were talking about a dividend portfolio and, you know, what some of these companies pay on dividends. You have a large retirement nest that you start getting some dividends off that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get to a point to where you're like, oh, I'm not touching that principal. You know, my dividends are covering most of my monthly expenses. You know, that can be a significant advantage.
Yeah, and again, that comes from the discipline of investing early and continuing, being very diligent about it, not stopping, not making excuses. Well, I'll stop it for a couple months. Just start it. I don't care if it's with $5 or $500. It really doesn't matter. Start it early, continue to increase as you can, but don't ever stop it. Just keep it going. And that's where, when you get down the road because you've sacrificed early, that's when dividends and those start to really add up. I mean, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 just of dividends, that's crazy. I mean, that's a pretty good income stream. So think of that.
We talked about our intern earlier. I was having a conversation with him about saving for the next 45 years.
It's pretty nice to be that young.
Yeah. I'm like, do you understand the impact 45 years of saving and investing can have?
Well, right? I mean, that's what we talk about young people all the time, is like, time is your friend when you're young. It is your friend because of the compound interest. That's the greatest thing you got, is time with compound interest. The last one, it says automate and simplify. Automate meaning having your bills paid automatically. So
your savings done automatically.
Savings is done, again, when you get your check, put it in your savings. I might have $50 or $100 come out, put it in your savings, and then another 50 or 100 go in investments if that's what you're going to do. But have it done automatically so you don't have to think and write a check. Oh, I forgot this month, I'll do next month, right? That's the biggest thing. Just make your system work for you. You don't have to do that. And one of the things my dad taught me when I was with him early on was, make your money work for you. You're working hard for your money. Make it work hard for you, right? I mean, that's what he's saying is, you're working hard for it. Invest it and make it work for the next 40 years hard for you. So just be very diligent. Be very just same thing every time, right? Just be repetitive. That sounds boring, but that's the best way to go.
Yeah, and we talk about the mindset, right? You keep talking about long-term investing and all of these things, the discipline, the automation, all of these things. It becomes a mindset of, no, my priority and my goal is to, retire at this age with this amount of money.
Yeah.
So that has to become your goal and your mindset. Hey, I know every month $500 goes into that. I know these bills get paid automatically. I save on. That becomes your mindset of, that's my priority.
Yep. No, you're exactly right. I mean, we're beating a dead horse. Delay your gratification.
Right.
Don't need it today. Right. Don't need it today. If you have your financial freedom goal, what you want to achieve, you're going to have to delay some gratification. And that's just part of it, right? Don't compare yourself to others. That's a big one. One of the things they say is, don't see money as the goal or the tool. See money as a tool, not the goal. Like trying to accumulate $1 million. That's your goal. Well, that's not really it. That's just a tool to get you to your end game, right? Don't see that as the all in. That's just what I got to have. That's not what you want. And then, like you said it best earlier, continuously read and learn more about how you can get your financial freedom. Just continuously talk to people, read. Everything's on the internet nowadays, but continuously learn on what you're trying to do, right? And we talked about in those 7 steps to doing that is, maybe you do want to start a side business. It doesn't have to make $100,000, but if it makes an extra $500 a month, $1,000 a month, that's a big deal, right? That's an income stream you didn't have before. That may not take as much time as you think, but learning about those types of things, right? A freelance, maybe a photographer, you're only making $400 a month. That's still $400 more than you made before.
Yeah, and in retirement, an extra $400 or $500 a month can be huge.
It can be really big, right? Yeah. So on the financial freedom, we've kind of covered a lot of those things. Obviously, there's more, but we're not going to take 4 hours because nobody will watch that. But again, I would say the biggest takeaways are, find out what your picture looks like. Don't compare it to everyone else's, right? Be diligent about what you're doing. Learn as much as possible. Those are 3 of the probably biggest takeaways, is create your plan for yours. Don't base it on somebody else. That's the biggest thing. Is, again, we always get that question. Well, am I as good as the other 40-year-olds that are my age? Am I saving? Do I have as much or more? What am I in the top 10%? I don't know what to tell you on that. Like, to me, that means nothing because I don't know how you live we don't know how they live. So that's a big thing.
And something, when we sit down with people and we build these financial plans, you frequently say, hey, this is a living, breathing plan. It is going to change. So as we move through, we start with somebody in their mid-30s. When we get to their mid-40s, some of those goals may change a little bit. They may be, say they're ahead of pace or, they're behind. So, hey, we got to adjust this. We got to start saying, hey, you got to start saving more now. Because, right, the longer you wait, the more you have to save to get there. So, here it says it's about clarity, commitment, and consistency.
Yes.
And I think that's fantastic. That's, a pretty good little saying there to keep people on task. Clarity, commitment, and consistency.
Yeah, and again, we said it. Everything doesn't have to be done today. Pick something. start it and then move on to the next thing and keep going. It can be overwhelming if you think you got to change your whole lifestyle all at one time. That's not technically what we're saying. Start with the plan, start small, and then continue to build from that, right? I mean, that's really what you're trying to do.
Well, great conversation this morning.
It was good.
Yeah.
Hopefully that helps some people.
Yeah, I hope so. Hey, and if anyone ever has any questions about anything we talked about here on this video, feel free to reach out. Our contact information will be at the end of this video. So you give us a call, send us an email. We'll gladly have a conversation with you about helping you get started on this. So Brent, thanks for joining us this morning. I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate the offer to be in here. I enjoy talking about this stuff.
Yeah, it's a good time for sure. Again, Brett Rice, Brent Thoman, Core Vision Financial Group. Go to our YouTube page. Subscribe so you're notified when we post a new video. Our contact information will be at the end of this video. Please feel free to reach out. Thanks for spending some time with us.